Jaya Shriman Narayana. Jaya Bhagavan Shri Krishna. Jaya Shri Guru. Sanatana Dharma Jayate. Dharma Rashtra Jayate. International Sanatana Dharma Society Jayate. Om Hari Om. Namaste, everyone. It is absolutely my honor, my privilege, and my joy to be with you here today, as we are every Monday at this time. Thank you all so much for being here. And as I mentioned with the last live stream, what we're going to be doing today is something a little bit special. Usually I give a talk and then that's followed by questions and answers. And for those of you who were here last time, you'll remember that last Monday I just gave a talk for approximately an hour or so. But then I told everyone that this Monday, very specifically, what we would do would be nothing but take questions and give answers to all of you. So that's what we're going to be doing today for approximately an hour or so, is basically just taking questions from the audience. Before you ask anything, however, please don't yet, because if you do, I may not see your question. Just a few very quick announcements, just a few things that I need to say. First of all, as I've mentioned several times, the International Sanatana Dharma Society is the name of our movement. It is a movement that I founded in 1998, and the goal of this movement is to spread, to teach, to sustain pure Sanatana Dharma throughout the world in every way. And that's what we've been doing for the last 22 years or so. This is indeed a nonprofit religious organization. It is recognized in America as a tax-exempt religious organization. And as a result, every year we have an annual fundraiser, as does, as I've said in the past, every nonprofit organization. There's no nonprofit organization really that doesn't have fundraisers. Well, we're having our year-end fundraiser, and we are attempting to indeed ask people for donations and receive donations for what will be coming in the next year, which we expect to be probably the biggest growth of the ISDS in its history. Thus far, I can tell you, in 2020, the ISDS has grown on more fronts, both quantitatively and qualitatively, more in 2020 than it has since its inception 22 years ago. And what we're expecting for next year is bigger growth than even this year, in fact, exponentially so. But to do that, of course, we need help. We need donations from people. We need your help as much as possible. So let me just very humbly ask you if you are in a position to do so. If you're not, please do not worry about it. If you are in a position to do so, please donate to the ISDS. If you look in the comments section that's just below this video on YouTube, you'll see that there is a link that will link you directly to our fundraiser page on dharmacentral.com. Please feel free to give a one-time donation, and it can be anything. It can be $5, it can be $5,000, or anything in between, whatever you can spare. In addition, One thing that's very helpful is if you can become an actual tithing member of the ISDS. In this way, it's wonderful for us because it helps us to budget our year, our months, etc., much better because we know how much money is coming in on a month-to-month basis. So again, go to dharmacentral.com, go to the menu, look under membership, and please consider becoming an actual member of the International Sanatana Dharma Society. And in that way, you will help us to help you and to help untold millions of others in this world by helping them spiritually. With that, I thank you so much again for being here. And as I promised, we're going to jump right into questions and then my answers to your questions. So I will signal to everyone, please feel free to begin asking questions. As I always have to tell people, I will not, even with an hour dedicated to questions and answers, I won't be able to answer everything, unfortunately. But I will certainly do my very best. Very good. And here's a question. I see the very first question here from Sri Ram. It seems that Sri Ram tends to often be one of the first people to ask questions. And he is asking here, Namaste Acharyaji. Nowadays, people only celebrate Christmas as a form of sense gratification and not to celebrate the birth of Jesus. Why is this, and how can we remove this poison from people's minds? Very good. Excellent question. And the truth of the matter is, while what you say about Christmas is absolutely true, and of course, for those of us who find ourselves in the Western world especially, we know that Christmas is truly a major holiday anywhere and everywhere in the Western world. But interestingly, what we have found throughout the entire world is that due to this process of radical secularization that has occurred throughout the world in modernity, that is, since at least the Enlightenment era, so roughly 250, 300 years ago, what we have seen is that indeed many holidays, holy days, see, that's where you get holiday from, is holy day. Many of these holy days that were at one time sacred in many religions actually have now been radically secularized. And this has been one of the ongoing projects of many projects of the, unfortunately, demonic materialistic creatures, elite, who have ruled over us for so long and who have attempted to indeed destroy traditional religion for so many hundreds of years, is that they will, let's say, not being able to destroy a cherished religious tradition entirely, they will subvert it. So what we see is that many holidays, you see, this is true for Deepavali in Vedic society, in Hindu society. This is true for, again, many holidays in many different religions. This is also true for, of course, Christmas as well. That they could not eliminate Christmas entirely without fear of revolt from the masses in the Western world. So what have they done? They have subverted it. They have perverted the idea of Christmas and made it into a radically secular and thus, of course, materialistic holiday instead of holy day. So this was the process that occurred, and let me see if okay, yes, there is more to your question. How can we remove this poison from people's minds? In the same way that we remove all secularist, all materialistic, all Marxist, all anti-spiritual poison from people's minds. And that is that we introduce the opposite of poison. We introduce the cure. The cure to that poison is indeed unadulterated and authentic spirituality. You see, the New Age movement, as massive as it is, has done zero to counteract materialism. Indeed, New Ageism itself is materialistic and secular and greed-oriented, you see. Rather, the way that you combat poison is indeed by having the antidote. And the antidote is its opposite. We rid ourselves of this poison of materialism by introducing authentic spirituality, Sanatana Dharma. So I hope that answers the question. All right, here is a question from Frankie Mosa. Namaste, Sri Acharyaji, and thank you for tonight's live stream. Absolutely my pleasure. Is reality personal and or subjective, or do we create our reality? Thank you. Excellent question. This is a very good question that I have spoken about a little bit and especially written about, actually. I've written about this in several places, including the Sanatana Dharma book. There has been this ongoing debate really for a long time philosophically, and I'm not going to go through the entire history of it. There's a matter of Berkeley, there's a matter of the German idealists, there's a matter of so many individuals who feel that subjectivism is truly the important factor in determining what is the nature of reality. Then you have objectivists, radical objectivists, for whom no, the subject is of no importance. It is quite literally concrete empirical reality that is of importance. So you have had this debate in the realm of philosophy going back, stretching back throughout history. And this is true in many traditions, in the European tradition, and many other traditions as well. And the truth of the matter is, this is how I have explained the relationship between the subjective and the objective in accordance with pure Vedic philosophy. And there is indeed a Vedic stance on this. I think, as people have seen, if you've been with me for some time, there is a Vedic philosophical stance on everything. And anyone who tells you otherwise, any one of these less than authentic so-called Vedic or Hindu or yoga or anything else teachers who want to claim that, oh, no, the Vedic worldview has many, many, many different opinions and you just pick whichever one you want. No, that's not the case. There is an objective Vedic standard as far as answering this question, and that is this. Reality ultimately is indeed objective. In other words, there is indeed an objective world that lies outside the purview of our own experience. You see, if this was not the case, then the very fact that I am not in Japan right now would mean that Japan no longer exists as of this moment and only comes into being once my plane lands there and I step foot on Japan. No, Japan is an objective reality. There is indeed an objective reality that is there around us, and indeed, Dharma is within the context of, let's say, philosophy and the natural law. Dharma is indeed the ultimate standard of what is the nature of that objective reality. But then going deeper, ultimately it is God and God's perspective that ultimately forms objective reality. Now, all that being said, it is not to say, of course, that our subjective reality does not have importance. On the contrary, all that our subjective reality is, and this is what is very interesting, tying this with personalism. You know how I speak about personalism all the time and the philosophical implications of personalism. When it comes to the idea of our, let's say, approach to that objective reality, that is subjective. In other words, how we perceive, how we relate to, how we understand objective reality will indeed differ somewhat from person to person. Not entirely. Not entirely. Obviously, there are elements of objective reality that apply to all people, to the point where if there's one person who veers away from that concordance of objective reality, that person is considered to be mentally ill. So thus, for example, gravity is something that is an objective reality. But if you find one person who insists he can fly and he'll try to step off of a cliff and attempt to fly, that person is considered crazy. So thus, there is indeed room for subjective reality. That is how we, as individual personalities, have the ability to, again, comprehend that objective reality. However, again, the two have to go hand in hand, and with this understanding that objective reality is what we wish to know, how we know it, and what we do with that knowledge, that's subjective. So I hope that answers the question. I could go deeper, much deeper, but let's just leave it for that. I'm trying to keep this quite simple. Very good. Let's look at a few more of these questions. Excuse me for a moment. For those of you who may have noticed, I am a water drinker. I believe in drinking water, not just as I'm doing my live streams, but always. It's a very healthy thing to do, and I would strongly recommend that everyone drink as much pure water as possible. It's very healthy for you. Very good. Here is a question from Sri Acharyaji. Is the universe itself alive or conscious? How real is the sun god or personality? Does giving water to the sun every day yield any benefits? This is an age-old Indian tradition. All right, several questions here. So I'll try to go through this somewhat quickly, but thoroughly. So first of all, is the universe itself alive and conscious? Yes and no. Yes and no. And let me explain this in a way that's very easy to understand by giving this illustration. If we were to look at ourselves in the mirror, are you looking at, and listen to the wording very carefully. If you look at yourself in the mirror, are you looking at something that is alive or not? Now, of course, what is the answer? Well, of course, you are, looking at a living being. You are looking at yourself, but at the same time, you're looking at something that is not alive, and that is your body. So as of now, as Atmans who are embodied in material form, you could say that, in a way, if one observes one of us, if you observe me, for example, yes, I am both. I am an Atman who is within the context of this mortal frame. In the same way, now, when we look at the universe, again, yes and no. So the universe is indeed comprised ultimately, energetically, one could almost say philosophically, and in the realm of physics, Vedic physics. The material universe is comprised in its outward form of Prakriti, of materiality itself. And materiality is not of the nature of consciousness. However, what gives that materiality within the universe any sort of meaning is indeed the fact that consciousness is there. And this includes all of the individual units of consciousness, and maybe what I'm about to say will directly answer Siddharth's question. But also, God is present within all things. So that being the case, God is indeed present in all things, so any even material thing that we look at anywhere in the universe, what we are looking at is, again, matter that is informed by the presence of God. So I hope that answers that question. How real is the sun god or personality? Surya Deva. Surya is as real as you, as real as me, as real as your mother and father. And I mean this quite literally. Surya is not a symbol, is not an idea, is not a myth. Surya and all the gods and goddesses are personalities in the same way that you can go up to any human being and shake their hand or say namaste. The gods and goddesses are just as real. Does giving water to the sun every day yield any benefits? Yes, it shows you humility. It shows you what is the nature of humility and what it means that when there is a being who is so vastly superior to us, and not just superior to us, but who is a benefactor toward us, that we should always offer obeisances, that we should always offer our respects to such beneficent beings, the gods and goddesses. Think about it for a moment. The sun, what we call the sun, again, being this personality of Surya Deva, of the sun god, this being the case, what if the sun were suddenly no longer here? End of the story. That would be the end of the story for all of us. So thus, yes, we must always be very, very, very grateful to all the gods and goddesses by offering humble offerings unto them. So I hope that answers those questions. Let's see. Sri Ram, contact me privately and we can make an arrangement. Very good. Very nice. Here is a very nice question from Brittany. Namaste. Is there a good source to learn about how to apply Vedic etiquette in the modern world today, particularly in regards to how to act with your guru? Yes, excellent question. Now, let me say, as far as the Vedic scriptures, there is no one book very specifically. There is no, let's say, one Vedic scripture that deals with this topic entirely. Rather, you have to kind of look and hunt within the Vedic scriptures themselves, and you do indeed find many examples, many teachings about etiquette, how to act toward guru, etc. But again, they're not collected in one place. You have to kind of look. So the next best thing is indeed to look at two of my books, really three of my books. The first being the Sanatana Dharma book, that is Sanatana Dharma, the Eternal Natural Way, but also the Sanatana Dharma Study Guide. And then the third one being Taking Refuge in Dharma, which is a small book that I wrote about what it means to take initiation from a guru. Look at those works as a beginning. And let me say the last book that I mentioned, Taking Refuge of Dharma, that book actually in the near future, I wish to actually expand quite a bit. So the version that is there now is the version that presently exists, but in the future that will be expanded, and I'll talk more about exactly these items and other items in the book once I've expanded it. But there's a little bit that's there. But again, as far as the Vedic scriptures, there's no one place where such things are collected. So it's a matter of just reading as much as possible. Very good. Namaste, Acharyaji. Is nostalgia a tamasic emotion? Excellent question. Very good question, actually. And I will answer that. As is the case for so many other items or activities within the world, with nostalgia, some nostalgia is sattvic, actually. Some is rajasic and some is tamasic. And what it depends on are two primary things. Number one, what is the nature of that which you are nostalgic for? And then the second thing being your motivation. Why are you nostalgic toward that thing? So let's deal with the tamasic aspect. Nostalgia can indeed be tamasic if, let's say, the reason why you are nostalgic is because, let's say, a person has not really had much success in their life. They haven't really done much with their life. They really just don't know how to cope with, let's say, the modern world, etc. So as a result, they're kind of forced to constantly be thinking in a nostalgic sort of way, just kind of trapped in the past. That is not a good sort of clinging to nostalgia. That is indeed tamasic. That is something that is downward pulling, and that just kind of paralyzes you. So by definition, tamasic. But then on the other hand, if an individual is indeed someone who is in their own being very sattvic, we're not going to deal with the rajasic because it's not as important. And there isn't really much evidence of rajasic nostalgia, just a little bit. But let's say an individual is very sattvic. That is, they're very good, very spiritual, very intelligent. They have very high ideals, etc. And that individual finds themselves drawn very often to things of the past, either in their own life, but especially just generally speaking. But that being the case because they do indeed yearn for something better. It's not that they're forced to, but they're attracted in the same way that you would be attracted to a beautiful work of art or something like this. But again, they're successful in their present life. They are accomplishing things. They're doing good in the present world. They're not depressed or anything. They just like older things. Let me tell you, I am one of these people. I am someone who sattvically is nostalgic. Actually, I love, and people who know me well know this about me, I love older architecture. And I mean, by older, I mean, roughly 120 to 150 years ago. I love older architecture. I love what today is called antique furniture. The more antique, the more ornate, the better. I enjoy older things. But again, it's not because it's a type of escape for me. No, on the contrary, it's because I appreciate it on its own terms. And if I didn't have these things to be nostalgic about, I would be fine. I'm focused on what I am presently doing, etc. But again, it's kind of like how I would be drawn to a certain kind of art or a certain kind of music. In the same way, yes, I am nostalgic for things past. And because these things represent for me, art forms that are more beautiful than much of the art, and much of the architecture, etc., that's being created today. So yes, as far as nostalgia, there's good, there's bad, and it depends on what it is that you're nostalgic for and what your motivations are. So I hope that answers that. Very good. Here's an interesting question. Sri Acharyaji, would you kindly explain how Vrinda, that is Tulasi, bestows devotional service via the Tulasi plant? Yes, absolutely. I can absolutely answer that. And without going too deeply into, let's say, the esoterica of answering this, Tulasi is, of course, as we know, and there is a very long story which I'm not going to attempt to tell you because it would take 20 minutes. You can look it up yourself. There is a wonderful long story about why Tulasi is Tulasi, how she became who she is. And to make this extremely short, she is an individual who is thoroughly, absolutely, radically devoted to Lord Narayana, to Lord Vishnu, to the point where she is now manifest. While she was human at one time, she is now manifest as this sacred plant, known as holy basil sometimes in English, but Tulasi. And what was your question exactly? How she bestows devotional service. She bestows devotional service in the same way that the Guru, that Shuddha Vaishnavas, Shuddha Bhaktas, that is pure devotees, also can bestow their blessings upon us and thus give us the ability to perform devotional service. So in the exact same way that she graces us. So when we worship Tulasi, and this is something that certainly should be done. If you have the ability to keep a Tulasi plant in your home, which is a little difficult if you live in a cold climate because she needs warmth. We have a Tulasi plant here actually in our temple. But if you can have a Tulasi plant in your home, then yes, you should offer puja to her, you should offer water to her, etc. And in doing so, by performing service unto this pure devotee, you derive the grace, the mercy of this pure devotee in such a way that then you have the ability to worship Krishna even better. And again, this is true not just for Tulasi, but this is why we also worship the Guru. Someone asked me about this the other day. And yes, we have photos of our Guru on our altar, for example. This is why whenever we meet any sort of truly advanced devotee, we offer our respects to that person, hoping that we will gain that person's blessings. So this is why we worship Tulasi. Very good. Here's a very interesting comment, actually, not a question, from Vasil Acharyaji. On Friday night, I dreamt of you giving a talk in the Elvish language from Lord of the Rings. It was most amusing. Wonderful. Very good. Well, that makes me very happy, actually, that you had such a dream, because, of course, people who know me know that I am a tremendous fan of Lord of the Rings and Tolkien in general. So thank you very much for sharing that with me. And give me a few moments, please. I'm not sure I quite understand this question, but I will attempt to answer it anyway. And this is from Eduardo. Namaste. If Narayana is everything, every breath, feeling, or sensation that we experience in connection with Vishnu, sometimes I feel absolutely And this part I don't quite understand. Absolutely aesthetic with reality just the way it is. Not quite sure what you mean by that, but let me just confirm that indeed Sriman Narayana is ever present. God is present in all things, in everything that we do. And yes, indeed, as you say it very nicely, with every breath, feeling, sensation, everything that we experience around us, ultimately is God. This is what it means to develop Brahma Vidya, God consciousness, is to understand that in all good things that come to us, ultimately God is the source of all those things, and God is present in all things around us. So thus, seeing, experiencing God in all things constantly. This is our goal. Very nice. Very nice. This is another question. Rambles of a Silent Mind. I like that that name. Very good. Hello, Acharyaji. Do you think that the Epistle of James is dharmic? What are your thoughts on the Apostle Paul? Did Krishna Vishnu appear in other regions of the world, or was it only India? Very good. Well, several things. As far as let's start large and then kind of zero in from there. As far as the Bible in its totality, and I've spoken about this several times, I've written about this very in depth. As far as the Bible, we do not really accept the Bible, and very specifically, the Old Testament we reject entirely. Now, as far as the New Testament, indeed, of the New Testament literature, the only works that I personally take seriously are the four Gospels. And the reason why is because these four Gospels deal very specifically with the life, the teachings, the works, and the personality of Jesus himself. So I take only the four Gospels seriously, and for that matter, by extension, other Gospels too, because I recognize, of course, that there are other Gospels in addition to the four Gospels that are in the accepted New Testament. There is a Gospel of Thomas, of Mary Magdalene, etc., etc. So we accept the Gospels. As far as the other works of the New Testament, no, we don't accept them as being in any way authoritative, and specifically Paul. I believe it's in the Dharma Manifesto that I especially go very deeply into this, making a distinction between what I call Paleo-Christianity versus Pauline Christianity. And this is the theological term, Pauline, meaning that which is of the Apostle Paul. And when it comes to this juxtaposition of Paleo Christianity, that is original Christianity, that is the exact teachings of Jesus, versus the teachings of Paul, there is a tremendous distinction that's there. If you will review the video of the talk that I gave last week, where I talked about the Vedic Jesus, and I spoke about this distinction between merely worshiping Jesus in a blind sort of way, which is what mainstream Christians do, versus following in the actual footsteps of Jesus and seeing Jesus as a guru. There's a tremendous difference between the two. And when it comes to these two, it is Paul very specifically who is responsible for the former, that is blind faith versus actually following. Now, as far as did Krishna, Vishnu appear in other regions of the world, or was it only India? Yes, he appeared in other places as well, but and the scriptures do say this. However, there are no records of exactly what occurred, but the scriptures do say that indeed there are as many avatars as there are waves in the ocean. But again, as far as these other regions, we don't really have much, if any, information. There's speculation because there have been great beings who appeared in various places outside of what we call India, Bharatavarsha. And as far as whether those individuals are avatars, Avesha avatars, etc., well, that's debatable. That's something that we don't really have time to go into every single instance of these. But indeed, Narayana has appeared other places. Narayana can appear anywhere. So yes, I hope that answers the question. Very good. So here is a question from Ahmad. Namaste Acharyaji. Thank you for such well-written books. Thank you. Thank you for saying that. Please explain the differences between Swami Sridhar's teachings and those of yours in the ISDS. Yes, absolutely. In fact, by extension, let's say Gaudiya Vaishnava teachings. That's actually the more proper term to use. So what are the differences between, let's say, Gaudiya Vaishnava teachings? That is indeed Bhakti Rakshaka Sridhar Swami and Prabhupada, etc., versus what is taught in the ISDS. To make this very simple, because truthfully, I've spoken about this at this point hundreds of times, and in some cases for several hours at length, actually. I remember I had one conversation with a small group of people, and I literally spoke to them. I gave them practically a 2-hour talk about this. But let me just say, to understand this succinctly, this is the difference, is that what makes me and my teachings slightly different from what we would recognize as, let's say, the exact teachings of Prabhupada or Gaudiya Vaishnavism is this, and it's very simple. My first guru, my primary guru, when I was approximately 14, maybe early 15, it was so long ago that sadly I can't remember exactly. I was either 14 or 15. The first individual who I took initiation from was Sri Acharyaji Acharya, and he was a Sri Vaishnava, what is called a Sri Vaishnava. He was a follower of the philosophy known as Vishishta Advaita, that is the philosophy of Ramanuja. And again, I was approximately 14 or so when that occurred. That would have been approximately 1977, I believe. 78, something like that. And it was years later, in 1985, that then I took another initiation from, indeed, Bhakti Rakshaka Sridhar Swami, and I was initiated in the Gaudiya Sampradaya. And to make a long story short, this is why I consider both to be my guru. And I have nothing but absolute respect for Prabhupada. And as far as the teachings, let me just say, the teachings that I follow are primarily Vishishta Advaita. This is my school. This is the school that I follow. This was the first initiation that I had, and I consider myself to be a follower of Sri Vaishnavism or Vishishta Advaita. And that being the case, that is my philosophy. Now, understanding this, the truth of the matter is, what I have seen, having been initiated in both sampradayas, is that other than a few items, which I've spoken about in the past, both sampradayas are in 99% agreement. And the truth of the matter is, fanaticism aside, because there will always be fanatics, who you can be in agreement 99.99999% of the time, but that little smidgen in which you have a slight disagreement, they will be fanatical and want to have a war with you. I'm not one of those people. I find that to be immature and extremely neophyte. I am in 99% agreement with, again, Prabhupada, with Sridhar Swami, with Gaudiya Vaishnavism, and as far as achieving liberation, that's good enough. It's good enough. So I like to avoid controversies on that matter. Very good. Very good. I believe we're back. We had a little bit of a disconnect there, and I apologize for that. And before I resume, as always, whenever this happens, I just need some confirmation from people that that we are back, that you can see and hear me. So the moment I get some confirmations, very good. All right, I'm getting some confirmations here saying that we are back. Excellent. Very good. And again, I apologize for that. It was nothing that we did here whatsoever. It's just one of those interesting things that just happens. So if you give me a moment, please, I just need to go back and find that question again, because I do indeed want to answer that question. So please give me a moment. Sadly, I can't find it, but I can remember what it was, and that is that basically what happens when, let's say, we have family members, and one of the family members is liberated and goes to Vaikuntha, another one goes to Pitraloka, the realm of the ancestors, etc. Is it possible to still communicate? And the short answer is possible. Yes, absolutely. And it really depends on, indeed, where the individuals go, what is the state that they are in, and do they really truly wish to communicate? The answer is yes. There is certainly always possibility of communication. So, for example, once an individual is liberated, then they have tremendous abilities. They don't necessarily even have to come back to the material world to still be able to communicate with individuals who are here. And then, of course, as we know, we communicate with our ancestors all the time, or at least some of us do. We should, to the point where we give offerings to our ancestors, pujas to our ancestors, etc. And they do indeed have the ability to communicate with us. So even though we are separated from family members, let me say this, it is not likely that communication will continue, but it is certainly possible, depending on the individuals involved and how important it is to them. So I hope that answers the question. And let me just say, because we were interrupted, some of the questions seem to have disappeared. So if you had a question and I don't answer it, it might be because it's just gone. It's just disappeared. The questions I have only go back a certain amount now. So I don't know what happened to the rest of the questions. So I'll just continue with what I have here. So please give me a moment. Very good. Just again, give me a few moments, because I did see that there are so many questions. As always, sometimes I even have to skip some very good questions because there are other very good questions. So please forgive me, because I will be skipping some people's questions, and it doesn't mean that they're bad. It means that there are just too many good ones. Very nice. Here's a somewhat political question, but I'm going to take this as a philosophical question, let's just say, and a historical question. This is from Eric. Greetings, Acharya. The American Constitution is a great document that will help defeat the cabal, written by Christians. Is there a conflict between the Constitution and the Dharma Manifesto? Excellent question. Actually, what I would challenge you to do is read the Dharma Manifesto, and you'll see that I do mention the Constitution in there, actually. And I talk about the nature of the Constitution. I talk about the nature of America. What is the actual spirit of America itself? And I do explain in the Dharma Manifesto that, see, when we say America, I'm not talking about the materialistic, capitalistic, greed-oriented, belly of the beast nation that it became, but rather, indeed, the ideal that was there at the very beginning of the birth of America. That is very much in accordance with Dharma. And as far as the Constitution being written by Christians, not quite. I mean, some of the founding fathers were indeed Christian. Some were deists. Some were individuals who were very much steeped in the idea of at least the Western tradition of natural law in the legal and philosophical sense. So thus, indeed, a lot of Dharma, a lot of natural law actually was invested into the Constitution itself. This is a history that quite a few people know, actually. The Constitution was written, at least in accordance with the ideas of the Founding Fathers. It was written in accordance with natural law, which, of course, is Dharma. So, indeed, we are pro-American Constitution as far as speaking, as far as, let's say, political philosophy. and the Dharma Manifesto. But again, read the Dharma Manifesto again when you have a chance, and you'll see that I discuss this in there. Very good. Can you delve deeper into what tapas means in the context of the niyamas? Yes, I can, actually. Tapas is, this means austerity. It means penance. There are several different translations of this word. And it's an interesting phenomenon that has occurred in recent centuries, that even though you find this concept of performing austerities all throughout the length and breadth of Vedic spirituality, and especially yoga spirituality. Indeed, it's mentioned in the Yoga Sutras. This is a concept that is very scarcely practiced today. And that because it's not really understood. That because the idea of doing austerity is seen in very extreme forms, with the idea of, doing austerities that are so extreme that they might be dangerous for you or something silly like that. And that is not the nature of tapasya. The nature of tapasya is several things. It really depends on what is your goal. The nature of tapasya is to A, purify yourself, B, to fulfill vows. So an individual will take a vow to do a certain tapasya, to do a fast or something like this, to just do something that's extremely difficult and challenging in order to achieve a specific goal. A person will do tapasya in order to please God. So thus there is such a thing as bhakti-oriented tapasya. And then finally, an individual, and this is the rarest of individuals, tapasvis, they're called, individuals who do tapasya. An individual will finally do tapasya in order to so thoroughly transform themselves as to make themselves practically a different person, like the idea of the caterpillar and the butterfly. And individuals, yogis, will do this especially if they feel that they have a tremendous mission to accomplish. So thus, of course, and I can give hundreds of examples, but just the most obvious ones, the Buddha, of course, did tapasya. He did, tremendous austerities, and this helped to prepare him for his later mission of teaching Dharma and reviving yoga and the Dharma warrior tradition. You have Jesus himself, getting back to Jesus and the Vedic Jesus. We know that before he began his teaching mission, what did he do? He went into the desert and fasted and prayed for 40 days and 40 nights, and on and on and on like this. I also, for those who know me, when my guru gave me the order to be a guru, very soon thereafter, I did tremendous tapasya for about 8 months or so of fasting and doing tapasya in the sun, and just doing many, many different things like that. So these are the deeper reasons for doing tapasya. And I wish I could go deeper, but again, just due to time and there being hundreds, it seems, of questions here, I'll have to leave it at that. I'm going to answer this very quickly. This person is called Brand New. Namaste, Acharyaji. I have a mild allergy which hinders my breathing. I have tried your Anuloma Viloma practice, and it wasn't of much help. Could you suggest something else that would help? Yes, definitely. Well, first of all, Anuloma Viloma is not something that we do to help with allergies or to help with breathing. Rather, it's something that brings about balance and calm in the mind and in the energetic system of the subtle body. That's what Anuloma Viloma does. And as far as help, I could not give medical advice in any way because I am a doctor. I am not an MD. I am a PhD. So I wouldn't feel comfortable giving medical advice. Let me say, however, this. Look into Ayurveda, because I know that there are indeed some very good remedies for allergies and for breathing that are found in Ayurveda, in herbalism, etc. So I would recommend looking into that specifically. and you will hopefully find something that will help you. And once you're able to breathe properly, then you can do anuloma viloma in a proper sort of way without discomfort. So I hope that is somewhat helpful. All right, here's an interesting question. Inspirational Mindset. Dear Acharyaji, I am a former Catholic and am practicing Sanatana Dharma. Let me stop there. First of all, welcome. Welcome, welcome. You are part of the family, and it is our honor to have you practicing Sanatana Dharma. So welcome. So now you continue. But I have noticed that Jesus in the Bible is an allegory and not a historical person. Is this true? Please explain. Thank you. Very good. Well, certainly that has been a theory that some more modern theologians have formulated, the idea that Jesus didn't actually exist, but that it's merely allegorical. No, that's not the case. There's no evidence of that. Jesus was a real person. It would not be possible for Christianity to have come about in the way that it did with so many very early disciples of a person giving their lives for an allegory. No, they gave their lives for a person, or the actual living apostles of Jesus. No, Jesus was an actual person. He was a teacher. The reason why sometimes individuals will claim that, Jesus didn't really exist, he was made up, he was mythological, is for the same reason that they will say this about all the gods and goddesses, is because it's a type of crypto-atheism. And it's, let me put it this way, when you make God or gods and goddesses or great teachers into myth instead of real persons, then you don't have to take them as seriously. And that's a type of intellectual and spiritual laziness on the part of the individual who wants to make all these beings into merely myths or allegories. No, Jesus was real. He was as real as you and I. He existed, he taught, he lived, he died. And he was a pure devotee of God. And again, if you want to know more about what is the Vedic view on Jesus, look at the video of the previous live stream. It's called The Vedic Jesus. And also take a look at two of my books, Sanatana Dharma, The Eternal Natural Way, and then the Dharma Manifesto. Look at those two books, and I go deeper into what is the Vedic view of Jesus. But again, I welcome you tremendously to Sanatana Dharma. Very good. Here is a question from Alex Tremol del Norte. Namaste Acharyaji. What are the main or best ways in which individuals, families, societies, etc. can glorify God? Very nice. Excellent question. Well, the scriptures do indeed talk about this, actually. And within the context of the Kali Yuga, very specifically, the very best way in which God can be glorified, again, as you mentioned, by individuals, families, societies, nations, is by glorifying the name of God, very specifically. Harinama, Harinama, the name of God. And this can be done via kirtan, which is a very popular way of glorifying the name of God, where you sing the name of God with instruments and with beautiful melodies and tunes, etc. For those individuals who may not have heard of kirtan, please feel free to look that up, and you'll find some beautiful videos of people performing kirtan. It also involves mantra meditation as well. This is another way that we glorify the name of God by individually reciting the name of God in the form of mantra. So, of course, as people know, the main mantra that we do is Om Namo Narayanaya. This also is glorifying the name of God because the name of God is in the mantra, Narayana. So this is the best way to glorify God, both individually, but then more broadly as well as a society, is to glorify the names of God. Very good. And again, we have about 2 minutes, so I am doing my best to find 1 or 2 questions that I can answer quickly. And obviously, I'm not going to be able to get to everyone's question, even with an hour, so I apologize for that. Eschatology. What does the Vedic tradition teach about the time of the end of wickedness? Very good. So Vedic eschatology is what you're asking about. And I'll try to answer this somewhat quickly. First of all, the concept of time in Vedic philosophy and the Vedic worldview is that of the cyclical nature of time. Time is not seen in purely linear form, but as being cyclical, meaning that, as we see, all of nature is cyclical. We have the winter and summer seasons that come and go. We have so many different cycles in nature. Human beings go through cycles. Generations of humans go through cycles where you're born, you give birth to offspring, you pass away, your offspring do the same, etc. Well, in the same way, what we see is that there is somewhat of a pendulum swing where sometimes good seems to triumph, sometimes evil seems to triumph, etc. And this is something that goes on for some time in accordance with the karma of the greater group of individuals who find themselves within this world. This is simply how it seems to work out. So there is no one specific time, let's say, in the biblical sense or the Abrahamic sense or even the Zoroastrian sense, where, at a certain point in history will come to an end, evil will be vanquished, good will be triumphant for all of eternity. That's not the purpose of this world. The purpose of this world is to allow individual Atmans who are in illusion to explore their desires. And that means good and bad. So that's why there's that pendulum swing. Sometimes we see that society is very good. Sometimes it's very bad. Sometimes we'll encounter people who are very good. We'll encounter people who are very bad, etc. It's all a matter of free will, and that is the purpose of the material world, to provide this space in which we can explore the illusion that we chose until it finally comes to the point where, as an individual, we can free ourselves from that illusion. Now, all that being said, historically, there are indeed times when evil is vanquished. But again, it's not eternally. That's not the purpose of this world. But evil is indeed vanquished, at least for some time. And what we, without going too deeply, because we're already about a minute over or so, essentially we are about to enter into one of these times in which evil is about to be vanquished. Evil is about to be defeated, and I've spoken about this endlessly. When I say we are about to enter a time, I'm not talking about 1,000 years from now. I'm not talking about 100 years from now. I'm talking about the vast majority of you who are watching me now will witness this. The vast majority of you who are watching me now, if you live long enough, you will witness evil itself being annihilated and good triumphing. You will witness this. We are about to enter into, indeed, a mini golden age. And when I say mini, this will last for close to 10,000 years, which within the context of time is not that long, but long for our estimation. So this is how the nature of time and eschatology works in accordance with the Vedic tradition in the tiniest, tiniest of nutshells. It's a topic that I could actually give easily a 2-hour talk on, but we don't have 2 hours. So with that, oh, this time of the live stream is always very sad for me because, again, I know there are so many good questions, and I always feel so very, very bad and very sorry because I know so many of you have very sincere questions and put your thoughts into these questions. But again, yeah, just due to time, we limit these sessions to 1 hour, and I won't be able to answer all the other questions, so please forgive me. Please join us again next Monday and every Monday, because every Monday, again, unlike today, I tend to give a talk and then I'll take questions. So even if I couldn't see or answer your question this Monday, please try again, and hopefully I'll see your question, and maybe in the future I will answer your question. And please don't lose hope just because I couldn't get to your question now. I think looking at this, I was able to answer not even 1/5 of the questions that were here. But with that, let me just say a few very quick things before closing. First of all, again, for those of you who may be new to this channel and you have not subscribed, please do so. Please do so right now. As you can see, this is not a channel like any other spiritual channel that you have encountered on YouTube or anywhere else. So please subscribe so that you'll get notifications about what's happening with our channel. The other thing is, please like this video because that helps us to have other people see it. When people like a video, it goes up in the algorithms, and thus other people have an ability to have it recommended to them. And we want these videos to help as many people as possible. So please like this video if you are so inclined. The other thing is, again, please, when you have a chance, go to dharmacentral.com, and a few things. When you're there, you will see that we have an email list. Please join our email list. This is a very good way of us remaining in contact with you should anything happen, because we are living in truly astounding times, and what we take for granted now might suddenly be gone in a flash. We don't know what's going to happen in the immediate future with the internet, with social media, etc. So please give us your email address so that at least somehow we can remain in contact. The other thing is, again, if you are so inclined, please help us by becoming a member of the International Sanatana Dharma Society. You'll see that information there at dharmacentral.com. And again, if you can, please donate. We need your help. We need your help. The ISDS is engaged in many projects throughout the globe to revive Dharma, to restore Dharma to this world. And anything that you can do to help us would be very greatly appreciated. With that, we will end here. I thank you again very much for spending your time with us for this live stream satsangha. I hope that this was inspirational and beneficial for you. And in the meantime, as I always say, please take very good care of yourselves in every way. Use the information that you found here tonight, not just to stimulate your brain, but to truly try to make spiritual progress, to meditate. If you are already meditating, if you are already doing spiritual practice, please continue. If you're not, please begin. Please begin. And do everything in your life, in your power, to know God and to serve God with all of your being. And if you do this, I guarantee you will know happiness. You will know joy. You will know peace. You will know everything that your deepest heart has yearned for if you surrender to God. This is why this path, known as Sanatana Dharma, the eternal natural way, this is why this path is here, to help you to know yourself and to know God, and to have absolute success in your life, both materially and spiritually. So with that, you have my blessings, you have my prayers. Please take very good care of yourselves, and please practice this path in every way. And with that, namaste. Jaya Shriman Narayana. Jaya Bhagavan Shri Krishna. Jaya Shri Guru Sanatana Dharma Jayate Dharma Rashtra Jayate. Victory to Sanatana Dharma. Victory to the Dharma nation. Evam Bhavatu. May that victory be so. And with that, everyone, please take very good care of yourselves until next we meet.